There's a very good, if admittedly sad, article in Common Dreams, which asks, where are the mass rallies coast to coast opposing Trump's authoritarian takeover? Now, one of the things that we've talked about before is that we have a system that is fundamentally designed to prevent people from mass rallying. Keep that in mind as we talk about this, because it's a critical aspect of what's going on. I keep hearing from some people, we need to wait and see. Maybe none of this authoritarian outreach that we're seeing from the current administration, or really authoritarian overreach, is going to stick. But I have to tell you, my friends, that that sort of magical thinking doesn't work. I want to talk about it specifically with you. We've got a president who basically says he won't abide by court decisions that he doesn't like. It's a clear red flag for Democratic backsliding. And I know there's the case to be made that he's overreaching, but that maybe he's weaker than he looks and he won't really do a bunch of this stuff. And there are some people arguing we should tune him out until he implodes. But if now is not the time for mass action, when is? Now, David Ost points out in this article an example from Poland, where the Law and Justice Party pulled similar stunts. Right-wing leaders passed laws with lightning speed and co-opted the courts and consolidated power. And the only thing that started to turn the tide, you can probably guess where I'm going, are massive demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations with people in the streets. And when Poles saw how many of their fellow citizens were outraged, it gave them hope and momentum, getting them to resist and oppose, and eventually led to real electoral victories for the opposition. Now, in the United States, we're facing an administration whose motto might as well be anything we don't like, we just ignore. Laws we don't like, we ignore. Procedures we don't like, we ignore. Allies we don't like, we ignore. And that's frightening, because it's not just a question of if they'll ignore the courts. It's how many times before any meaningful pushback happens can they get away with ignoring the law. Some constitutional scholars have warned the president here can potentially move faster to undermine checks and balances than a European prime minister can. So I would argue that giant peaceful rallies matter. They are not simply performative the way that, I don't know, signing an online petition arguably would be. They would send a signal to elected officials and judges and the media that are covering this stuff and our fellow citizens that there is a massive coalition out there that's not going to stand for the authoritarian tactics. Now, Common Dreams has long highlighted how these mass mobilizations can shift the conversation and spark real change. That's why I believe it's important we do this sooner rather than later, right? April or May at the latest. There's also a strategic element here with these mass rallies that I think is important to talk about. If we wait too long, it could be too late. If we don't do it soon, we end up potentially seeming like it's performative, because if you were really worried, you would have already done it. And that's why, to a degree, I think that the clock is ticking. Now, in my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, I devote a chapter to talking about forms of activism that really work. And this includes strategic non-payment of debts. This includes, it's a long list of things that go beyond consuming political content and signing petitions and voting. One of the cornerstone tactics of that chapter that I talk about are peaceful mass rallies. If people don't see a critical mass of their fellow citizens taking to the streets, they start to think, maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. Maybe I'm powerless. And that is exactly the wrong attitude. Once we see each other out there peacefully, it reinvigorates the entire movement. We saw it happen in Poland, and historically we've seen it happen in other places as well. The rise of solidarity in the 1980s was fueled by people who said, it looks bleak, but let's do something anyway. And before you knew it, millions of people realized they weren't isolated or alone. And when authoritarian leaders discover people aren't just going to roll over to what I'm doing, you can shift the trajectory of the entire country. So the big question here is, who is going to organize this? Ost raises the issue. I've raised the issue. I know many of you are thinking it. I got emails over the weekend. David, where are the mass rallies against authoritarianism? We have networks, we have activists, we have organizations that can mobilize hundreds of thousands, if not millions. The missing pieces are the resolve to do it, and also the Democratic Party that is really struggling right now, to put it lightly, to actually coherently get together. Now, I know some have said, hey, we don't control anything. They've got the White House, the Senate, and they've got the House. Okay, well, that sounds like a loser's attitude. I have to be frank. Tomorrow on the show, we will talk about what is going on with Democrats. We really can't afford to sit on the sidelines. We can't succumb to learned helplessness. And if you've got frustrations, if you've got energy, if you're tired of reading the depressing headlines about democracy on the ropes, it's time to stand up. So I believe that we are getting to the point where peaceful mass rallies in cities across the country are the obvious next step. And if part of what's motivating you is, where are those lower prices I was promised? I want to talk about that next a little bit. Millions of Americans grind or clench teeth at night, and most don't even know it. If you have jaw pain, headaches, there's a great chance you are one of them. Teeth grinding is often caused by stress, and it'll erode your teeth and enamel, and it can lead to some expensive dentist bills. The solution can be a mouth guard. Dentist-made mouth guards can cost hundreds of dollars. That's where our sponsor, Remy, helps. Remy makes dental-grade, professional quality mouth guards with no painful price tag, up to 80% less expensive than what you'd pay at the dentist, and you don't have to go to the dentist for one. Remy's process is simple. They send you an at-home impression kit to mold your teeth. You send it back. Their dental team will make a custom-fit guard. Remy's guards are so comfortable, most customers forget that they are wearing them. I often use a mouth guard when I sleep. It's been a game changer. No more pain during the day. I'm saving my teeth. And with a 45-night satisfaction guarantee, you can try it risk-free. Go to shopremy.com/Pacman. Use the code Pacman to save up to 50%. The link is in the description.